This is a presentation about the ASH test. The ASH test was originally developed to find an objective way of determining whether a player is ready to return to arm tackling. It's a pretty vulnerable position, as you can see from the image. It exposes a player's shoulder to high forces in long lever positions, often at high speeds during a collision. No surprise that the tackle results in a high number of injuries in professional rugby. So the question was, why were strong players still getting injured? A player who'd passed all the normal tests, had good enough strength scores to return to contact, could return in close tackles, but was unable to return to longer lever reach tackles due to a lack of confidence and symptoms of instability and shoulder pain, and therefore was unable to make a full return to rugby. So, combining a knowledge developed through a lot of field-based testing at Saracens and putting that together with the concept of monitoring isometric testing in the lower limb, which we've done at Arsenal for 4 seasons, these two things aligned to attempt to solve the problem of the long levers and also finding a test that could look at high forces in this strong cohort of athletes. We developed the ASH test. The ASH test is a maximal 3-second isometric test, pushing into a force platform. There are 3 positions: the I position, the Y position, and the T position. The subject is instructed to push as fast and hard as possible to their maximum. They are positioned on the floor with their head on a block to standardize the neck position, and in the Y and T positions they place their hand behind their back so they don't use it to fix and stabilize their trunk against the rotational forces. The feet are hip width apart to avoid any compensations and should stay that way throughout the trials. The test itself has been shown to have excellent reliability in a recent publication. It was performed using 18 elite level rugby players with excellent ICCs ranging from 0.92 to 0.98. Pilot work's also shown that when we tested 2 days after a game, scores across the board were lower than 24 hours later, so this indicates a potential role for the test in fatigue monitoring. There are also a number of case studies, not only from one rugby club but also some other elite clubs, that show changes relating to injury and the ability to track those changes in test performance through return to play processes. The paper itself demonstrated excellent reliability in peak force production, but we've also found RFD as a reliable marker. It's important to note that this hasn't been published yet, but it's something we're currently assessing so that we can analyse the data appropriately and be confident in our ability to accurately pick up changes in important rate metrics. So the key concept is really that not only are players strong enough to produce force in these challenging positions, but they can also switch on the muscle fast enough to protect the joint. There's a performance and an injury prevention focus. Some of the work around the ASH test has been to look at future directions, and using force platforms we've looked at the kneeling T test position after some conversations with baseball. And we've also looked at the split kneeling T test position to really dig into the kinetic chain contributions to force delivery into the platform. What we found so far, although these are early stages and preliminary results, we've seen consistency within trials, good looking force time curves, able to pick up peak force and rate of force development. So the findings overall in terms of the ASH test. The test itself demonstrates excellent reliability, as we've seen from the publication. It fills this knowledge gap looking at long lever, high force, high rate testing. It can pick up asymmetries relating to injury, and there are certain test positions that seem to be associated with different injuries in rugby. For example, the Y position seems to pick up players who've had previous pec tears in rugby. The T position has been shown to be sensitive to AC joint injury. It can pick up deficits caused by fatigue and under recovery. So in pilot work, we've seen players 2 days after a game who were down in their scores, and then these came back up to normal by day 3. One club has a standardized return to contact session and has picked up 20% drops in force production immediately post-session in normals, with 40% drops on the side of the injured shoulder when compared to testing prior to the session. A key finding is that some players whose peak force scores have returned to pre-injury levels still exhibit deficits in rate of force production on the recovering side. So going around the grounds, there are a number of frequently asked questions, which is worth addressing. Firstly, why is the test performed on the floor? This position was thought to be the most stable and therefore potentially the more likely to give consistent and reliable results. Second question, did you try pushing back into the platform to work the posterior shoulder? Yes, we've done this, and some other people have looked at piloting this, but the amount of force produced was much less due to the contact with the back of the hand with the platform, and also it didn't give us consistent results. So third question, can you perform the test using a handheld dynamometer? Again, yes, you can. It's less reliable and less likely to pick up rate of force development in those early, more explosive time points of 50 to 200 milliseconds. So any questions that haven't been answered in this mini presentation, please direct them to Ben Ashworth. There's a lot of ongoing work across a number of different sports, and we're currently building that intelligence to be able to see how this test is applied in these elite sport settings to help solve shoulder problems.